Welcome back to another edition of FLIR Primed. I'm Grant Coffey. Today we're going to talk about secondary devices, or IEDs. In this day and age, we all know that the potential for a secondary device can be at any scene. That's one of the first messages I want you to understand. Always suspect the potential for a secondary device. They're meant to hurt innocent bystanders and, unfortunately, responders too. We need to suspect them on certain scenes. We need to be aware they can happen anytime. They're using asymmetrical tactics, and they can be at places that we don't suspect. These devices can look like anything. They're fairly easy to make and very easy to conceal. They can be timed, or they can be remotely detonated. A lot of different options here. Close to the position that I'm filming this today in Portland is a town called Woodburn. 5 years ago, an IED detonated inside of a bank, killed 2 people and injured 1. So the potential is there all the time for a secondary device at a scene that you are on. What sort of scenes would raise those antennas and cause suspicion? Number 1, any scene that already has an explosion, suspect a secondary device and look for that. Any scene that's unusual or illegal, Klan lab scenes, booby traps. Scenes that have chemical suicides, for example. If a person's distraught enough to commit suicide, there's a potential of them to be distraught enough to do something else, take you with them, for example. Any scene with a large quantity of people, even an MCI, multiple patient scene, anytime there's a large gathering, especially if it's got a political motive or a parade. Any scene with large numbers of people on specific dates. Finally, any scene where people congregate at transit centers, bus stops, train stations, subways, rail stations. Suspect the presence or potential for IEDs at all of these scenes. Let's cover a few basic SOPs for response to a secondary device scene. Number 1, and I'd like to emphasize this, if you can see the device, you are too close. So what we like to say is a minimum of 150 feet from the device. Establish your safety zones early. Next, it's important to implement scene security, both in and out of the scene. Stay away 150 feet, use your binoculars, but also take advantage of the scene responsible person or the RP. They know what's different, what's out of place on scene. It's important to call out the cavalry. What that means is early notification of scene experts that can help you. These could include hazmat response teams, police, bomb squads, civil support team, FBI. For explosion scenes, it's incredibly important to rule out the presence of radiation. Take your detector, turn it on, and put it on. Try to avoid the use of electronic equipment within the zone. This could possibly initiate the device. Don't use your cell phones, pagers, or any radios. Try to rely as much as possible on face-to-face communication. At a secondary device scene, there's always going to be the potential for a large quantity of patients. The problem is we need to get them out fast. We employ a technique that's called grab, strip, wrap, and run. Get in, grab them, take them out of the zone, strip them, 90% of the contamination comes off with the clothes, wrap them, and then run to the hospital. Grab, strip, wrap, and run. These scenes are very dangerous, and there's a lot to remember. I like to use a memory tool that I call IEDs, IEDS. The I stands for information. Situational awareness dictates that on these scenes, we want to make sure we know whether there's the potential for a secondary device. That means we're looking around for all kinds of information. What do we see? There's a great download at the end of this episode that will talk about just that. E means evacuation. Establish your zones, adhere to them, but we want to evacuate all the victims, we want to evacuate any unnecessary civilians, and any unnecessary responders out of that scene. The D means don't touch and don't transmit. Don't touch a device or a suspicious package or box. Pull out and let the experts go in later to assess that hazard. Don't transmit. Again, do not use your electronic equipment inside the zone. The S means scene security and specialists. There could be bad people trying to come into that scene, so we're talking about security from both ways, also at the command post. Finally, specialists. You need to have them there as fast as you can get them. We've covered that before. We call it calling out the cavalry. Make sure you take advantage of our download at FLIR.com/primed at the end of this episode, which will give you more information on this topic. Thanks for watching another episode. I'm Grant Coffey.